First of all, this is not professional financial or legal advice. Always consult a professional. We are going to record the conversation, and so we hope that everybody keeps their screens on if we're talking, so we can see you. Uh, so we normally do some things at the beginning of our calls, but we kind of already got into it. We got a guest on today. It's William Tingle. He's an author, an investor, and a real estate coach. And he's one of the guys that's been around the business about as long as I have. So that's kind of nice to have him on. He's going to give you the no nonsense, straightforward, no fluff, no everything's golden, everything works out beautifully, and you make tons of money, and you don't do it. Like I told you before, we're not gurus. We just tell you the truth. And so, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to William, and we're going to talk creative financing. And hopefully, this is something that you guys can put into play and help you along your journey. If I know I did early on in my career, about everything I done was creative. Uh, so, without further ado, William, if you want to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself there a little bit and tell people about what you're doing.
Yeah, my name's William Tingle. I'm a real estate investor. I also coach a few people, not on the scale that some people do, because real estate investing is my primary thing. In fact, 10 o'clock this morning, got a new contract on another house here. I don't buy 100 houses a year. We buy 10 or 15 houses a year. That's what we do. If you make really good deals, you don't have to buy 100 houses a year. I'm old, like David said. I've been doing this since 1999. I came from the restaurant business, worked 70, 80 hours a week. Quit school in ninth grade, so I didn't have a lot of options. But I didn't mind working hard. So I saw a Carlton Sheets infomercial in 1999, bought a Carlton Sheets course, found some online communities, and that's how I got started. I bought my first few houses. I bought one house and another. And I said, well, hey, this may work. I want to quit my job in a year. I did the math and I said, if I downsize and do some things, I can quit my job in a year. And that's what I did. I quit my job in 2000. I've been a full-time investor now for going on 26 years. I primarily teach creative finance because that's 95% of what I do. We'll do an occasional cash deal or a wholesale flip, but most of the stuff we do is buying subject to, selling it with seller financing, creating cash flow, cash up front, cash flow every month, cash on the back end. I say it's like the best of all worlds. I make the money on the front that a wholesaler makes. I make cash flow like a landlord without tenants. And then I make money on the back end like I would with a rehab without having to swing a hammer, hire contractors, deal with the city. So that's pretty much what we do. Happy to
Okay.
answer any questions or
Well,
help you out any way I can.
if you would, William, to the people on the call here, some people are new or kind of new to the business. Can you explain exactly what a subject to deal is to people? A lot of
You
people
bet.
don't really understand it.
You bet. I'll tell you, I'll give you the example of the house we bought today. This gentleman bought a house 3 years ago in 2022, and single guy bought the house, nice new house, moved into it. Then his mother fell and broke her hip, needed some help. So he moved in with them, which in a place about an hour away. It was just too far to drive every day. He lived in the house for a few months and then moved down there. And the house has just been sitting. He's making a $1,600 a month payment and just wanted to get rid of it. Now this guy paid $255,000 for this house 3 years ago, put $40,000 down. Today he owes $197,000, and I called him up and said, hey, what you want to do with that house? He said, I really want to sell it. So I met him there and took a look at the house, in great shape, needs very little of anything. And I said, well, I tell you what, I said, you owe too much for me to pay cash. I could make you a cash offer, but you'll have to come to close with money. And I said, what about this? What if I write you a check for $20,000, take over the payments on your existing financing? I'm not going to assume it. I'm just going to start making the payments to the bank. And he said, that'll work. So we're buying a $300,000 house for $217,000, $20,000 cash to him, taking over his $197,000 mortgage. The mortgage is going to stay in his name. Technically, he's responsible for it, but we'll make the payments. and we're going to write him a check for 20 grand, and he's going to go on his way. So we're going to get a house with, basically $100,000 in equity that's in great shape. And that's how it works.
Okay. And also for a lot of you listening, um, sometimes, you can do these without 20,000, without 10,000. Sometimes you can just do it with nothing.
Yeah, you
And I've,
can.
I've
Uh,
done many of them with just nothing.
You bet. The last one we bought, another house in really nice shape with equity. The guy didn't want a thing. He made the next month's payment when he went out the door. We gave him nothing out of pocket. We got $50,000 down from our buyer that went straight in Hip National Bank, and we'll collect cash flow on that one and a back end when they refinance. So you're right, David. They all don't need money.
Right.
Well, our goal is to try to get in lighter than our down payment from our buyer. And we know on this house that we're buying today that we'll probably get 25 or 30,000 down. So we'll go in with no money in the deal. We'll put short-term money in it, but we'll have it back in 30 days. So that's really what we try to do.
So everybody understands what he's talking about. He's given the down payment up front, and then when you sell it to the tenant buyer, let's say,
Right.
then you're going to take a down payment of 20,
Correct.
25,000.
Right.
That's kind of how it works. So, William, would you talk a little bit about how the construction of the deal goes, what forms you use and what things you do and stuff like that, maybe?
Sure. When we meet with our seller, we get 4 or 5 forms. Generally, I call those stage one documents. We get a sales agreement like you do anytime you buy real estate. We get an authorization to release, which gives the bank instructions that Tyler said it's okay for them to talk to us about the loan. We can gather information and do our due diligence, how much he owes, what his interest rate is, all of those things. We collect a couple of disclosures that go in depth into exactly how we're taking this deal down. This isn't a traditional real estate transaction. We're not going to the bank for money. We're not paying cash for the house. We are going to take over payments, leave his financing in place. He understands fully how this thing's going to happen. We're not making him a loan. He's not on drugs or alcohol. He's fully informed and understands he's had the chance to consult with an attorney if he wanted to. We also get an MLS disclosure, which just basically gives us the right to list that house if we want to. Now, David, I told you before we came on here, our MLS here just stopped that. We used to, the minute we got a house under contract, if we were going to retail it, we would list it. They pretty much put the brakes on that. But
Mhm.
our MLS agreement should give us the right to list it on the MLS for a buyer if we want to. And then we get a standard seller's disclosure on the condition of the property. So, does everything work? And we go through line by line, just like a realtor gets. But those are our stage one docs. That starts our due diligence process. Then when we close in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, we'll get a whole other batch of documents. There'll be a couple of other disclosures talking about sub two and specific. We get a limited power of attorney that gives us the right to transact, do things related to that real estate for the benefit of the person we're buying from. We'll actually get a deed from our seller to us or our entity, our trust. We use trust to take title. And then we also create a HUD for our seller. It's a standard sale, and every sale in the US gets a HUD, and ours is no different. Even though most of the time we don't close with a title company, we close with a notary, we still make sure that our seller gets a HUD. So those are the basic documents that we get in the transaction.
Okay, yeah, here in Charleston, you can still list with equitable interest.
Yeah, you should be
Anyway.
able to anywhere. I mean, equitable interest is pretty much a real estate. I mean, everybody understands what equitable interest is, but these
You,
guys here are crazy.
you think it's the novations that's done that, William? Is the novations have anything to do with that, or is it just in general they're going to do this regardless?
I'm going to tell you, Travis, honestly, I think Jody and I caused this issue here because when we rolled into town, we started doing deals that had tremendous equity. And we said, let's make hay while the sun's shining. If I can get a house under contract that's got enough equity to list it, pay commissions, and walk away with 70 plus, let's roll a few of these. Let's stack the cash because we know the dark times coming. They always do. So we did several of those in quick succession. Our best deal, we got under contract for 40 and sold it for 151 within just a couple of weeks on the MLS. We made $100,000 and we never touched that house. And I think that really aggravated some of these agents. We didn't bring any value in their eyes. They don't like that you can just negotiate a really good deal. Listen, that lady, I asked her, what do you need to get for your house? And she told me. And I said, okay, there was really no negotiation, but we bought it for 40 and we sold it for 151. And I just don't think they liked it. So I think that we had a lot to do with it about listing houses without actually owning them. I don't think they liked it. So.
Yeah. Also on this, do you put any type of time frame on them on the back end, William, as far as financing you out, or do you run it the same term as the underlying mortgage, or how do you?
I don't like to box myself in, David, and I'll tell you why. A couple of reasons. One, I see a lot of people now present these deals all over Facebook. It's got a 5-year balloon. The seller's going to carry, it's got a 5-year balloon, 3-year balloon, 7-year balloon, whatever it'll be. And unless you've got a crystal ball, man, you don't know what the market's going to be doing in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. So what I have always found is this: if once you start making promises, it's easier to keep making promises. And if you go out this year and you buy 25 houses and you've promised every seller a 5-year balloon, in 5 years, if the market's really bad, if interest rates are 12%, if the economy's in the crapper, you're going to have a big problem on your hands, right? If some of your buyers have bailed out on you, or even if they haven't, you got to go refinance that thing out. And this is what I tell my sellers. I said, like I told the guy this morning, I said, Tyler, I said, I can't promise you when we will pay off your mortgage, but I can promise you an on-time payment until we do. And the reason I can't promise it is I may put a buyer in there that's got good intentions, plans on refinancing in a couple of years, but life happens to everybody. What if they lose their job? What if they get a divorce? What if their kid gets a devastating illness and they go into a lot of medical debt and they can't get refinanced? So I'll have to start all over. So if I promised you a couple of years on paying it off, and then that happened, I'd have to call you up and break my promise. And I won't have to do that. So let me promise you this: on-time payments until I can refinance. And that's what I do with every seller. I don't box myself into a specific timeline.
Okay. What do you do, William, if you get in a situation where they have an adjustable rate mortgage or maybe a 5-year balloon, or how do you handle that as far as, how that goes? Interest rate goes up, underlying payment goes up, taxes, insurance goes up. Yeah.
Well, the solution to that, David, is don't buy houses that have adjustable rate mortgages. And that's the advice I'd give anybody.
Yeah.
Now, have I in the past? Yeah. But if it's got a lot of equity and I'm going to retail it, doesn't matter what that adjustable rate is. But in general, it's got to have some really specific other advantages. As a rule, I don't buy adjustable rate mortgage houses. I just don't do it.
How much equity do we need in a sub-2 deal? I know this is a hot topic, So
You know,
do we need equity, William?
In specific cases, no. If a house is worth 200 and they owe 190, 195, that's a zero equity deal. Will I buy that house? If they've got a 2.5% interest rate mortgage and their payment's 1,200 a month and I get 1,800 a month for rent, I'm in. If that house is in great shape, I got to do nothing to it but sweep off the front porch. I'm in. I'm cool with that. Fixed rate, 30 years, 2.5%. Yeah, I'm all over it. Because this is what I know. If the market goes bad, and I've put a buyer in that house because that's my MO. I told you guys that I sell or finance everything. It's worth 200 today, but next year it's worth 160. If my buyer hands me the keys back and goes, this house ain't worth what I owe on it, I'm out. My plan B is a rental. And if I can rent it for 18 and my payment's 12, even if rents go down, even if I can only rent it for 15, at least it's break even with management and maintenance. And I don't have to feed an alligator. So that's my safety net. What will it rent for? If my rent is going to give me $400 or $500 a month in cash flow today, I know I'm probably okay. And real estate's going to come back. Even if it goes down, it's going to come back. So that's my safety net. What will it rent for? But in general, we love equity. I'll never turn down one that's got equity.
Right. So you just got to make sure when you're doing these types of deals that the rent and or payment is enough.
Right. That's why when I see these deals all over the place that say, it's worth 400, they owe 380, that's no equity at that price range. I can't, because I look at it like this. If I can't list it, pay an agent, fees, costs, and get out of that thing without writing a check, there's no equity. Uh, and the payment's 3,000 a month and the long-term rental is 2,500. Man, that's a bad deal. Where is the deal here? There's no equity. I can't rent it and make any money or even break even. And the excuse they want to pull out of their bag of tricks is, oh man, do a pad split, do a group home. They stopped talking about Airbnbs because that market is so saturated and so many places are shutting them off. That's not a safe bet anymore. But this pads, I mean, I don't like being a landlord. You think I'm going to manage 8 or 12 people in one house with all their different personalities and all those things? Man, that is landlording on steroids, and I ain't into that. And I'm certainly not going to depend on that as a way to make money with real estate. I'm going to be able to sell it with a wrap, or at worst case scenario, rent it. That's what you got to be able to do.
How how do you feel about, because I know you keep these things, you teach people to, turn around and wrap them or, well, how do you feel about assigning these type of deals, like actually wholesaling terms?
Travis, that's a trick question.
I know it is.
About that. I do not assign my promise. Okay. I sat with that seller. I made them a promise. And if I walk out of that house and I meet you on the street, Travis, and you say, man, I heard about that great deal you got over there on Charles Street. I'll give you 20,000 for it and you can walk away. That may be tempting in a certain situation, but then I'm trusting you to fulfill my promise. And life happens to everybody. What if you get a divorce or you can't make payments or something happens to you or you get hit by a truck or anything could happen? You may not mean to not make the payments, but you just can't do it. Well, when Tyler realizes that his payments aren't getting made on his property because you gave me 20 and I'm out, right? So Tyler realizes when he goes to get a new car or do something down the road, man, you got a foreclosure on here. He's not coming looking for Travis. He's looking for William. William made the promises. The only way I think is a decent way to do an assignment, and it's not technically an assignment. If I met you on the street after I signed this deal up and you want it, I have to make an introduction. Tyler, this is Travis. He's going to buy your house. It's a better fit for him, and I'm out. And if he wants to do the deal with you, great. And if he doesn't, he's stuck with me and you're out. So, but that's the only way to do it. I'm not going to execute paperwork with a seller and then pass that off to you and trust you. If you start assigning those deals and you assign them to this guy and that guy and the other guy, and you're trusting an awful lot of people to fulfill your promises.
Yeah, and a lot of these virtual guys are doing that. They're assigning their rights over and not telling the seller. The seller has no idea.
Oh, I know they are. I have students. I have one student in particular in Colorado that was approached by a pretty prolific player out there about assigning some of these sub twos. And he asked me, what should I do? And I said, you better get an introduction because they've already done this deal. You better get an introduction to this seller and redo some of this paperwork. Okay. Make sure. And you know what? When they tried to do that, the seller said, oh, no, I don't know that guy. I agreed to do this with you. And ultimately, he didn't buy it because the seller wouldn't agree to it. He said, the seller told that original investor, listen, I dealt with you on this thing. I wanted to be done with this house. I'm not redoing anything now. I don't think most sellers would go for that. What we do, there's got to be some rapport building here. Even in a motivated seller's case, they've got to trust you. Only in the most extreme circumstance will somebody just not care at all and walk away from something. They most sellers will at least ask you. You take this guy we bought from this morning. His payments are current. He's just given us a house with a bunch of equity because he's down there with his parents now. He's going to get their house when they go. And he didn't need to buy a new house. He just doesn't want to make that payment anymore. But there's got to be a trust factor there.
Yeah. The beauty of a lot of these deals too, right now in subject to is a lot of people have low interest rate 30-year mortgages. A lot of people got 2.5, 2.75, 3.25, 3.5. So it's
Yeah.
really attractive right now.
Yeah, I know. I read a statistic this week that said 60% of all loans out there are under 3% still because people are staying in their houses. They're not going out because they don't want to pay 6.5 or whatever percent. That's a lot of mortgages. And some of those people go into foreclosure. Like I said, life happens. They get divorces, they lose their jobs. We're seeing a lot of foreclosures now on houses that have had the same owner for 15 or 20 years. It's a bad economy out there. I don't care what the government tells you. There's a lot of people hurting right now.
I saw a post you did the other day and it talked about how, it said something about, tell me I'm wrong, how your posts go.
Yeah.
And it said something about how you believe that, you don't got to start off wholesaling, that, that sub two is just as simple and that you could start off sub two. I just would like for you to talk about that a little bit because when I think of getting started, I think obviously wholesaling, that's the easiest way, right? So could you just tell me a little bit more about why you said that?
I'm going to tell you that, and that's the thing about subject to, and we talked a little about this before we came on here, but right now it's open season on sub twos, right? I mean, there are no states that ban it. You can go out and freely do this. I think there's 17 states that have laws against wholesaling right now. The beauty of creative finance is, and it's really funny when people ask me this, well, what do you have to pay them, or what does the term have to be? All of that's negotiable, right? I can sit there with a seller and we can iron out any kind of structure we want to. When you wrap your head around that, that's why I think creative finance is easier than an all cash offer. Or, and to me, wholesaling, you have to align the planets. I mean, you have to get the deal under contract. You have to close by a certain date. You have to find a legit buyer that's going to pay you cash. Unless you've got a lot of connections and established buyers, and you have to work around all these laws, it can be problematic. That's why these deals fall out or things like that. So when you're new and you don't have all those contacts, creative finance to me is just easier. Now, are there more moving parts to a sub two? Maybe. I mean, there's more documents, certainly. I mean, I can do a wholesale deal with a contract and an assignment, right? Two docs, basically. Now, we use a lot more than that. We use about 12, 15 documents now. But explaining it to a seller is pretty simple. If a seller's motivated, we keep it. Like I said, I never mentioned subject to. If I'm talking to you about buying your house, I'm going to listen to your story. I already know it'll work for you, or I wouldn't throw it out. And I'm just going to say, well, listen, you know what? What if we can pay you for your equity, if they have some, and make the payments on your mortgage until we can find a buyer? And for people in the right situation, that's a perfect fit for them. For that reason, I think if you've got a good teacher that can keep it simple for you, creative finance is easier to me than wholesaling. And to go further than that, the way we do it, we create cash flow. So you do a few of these deals. If you want to take a couple of weeks off, take your wife on vacation or go on a fishing trip or whatever it is you do, go do it. Wholesalers have to hustle nonstop. You got to keep that next deal coming in. So that's why I love creative finance. It's just, to me, it's simpler.
You talked me into it. There you go. That's all it took right there.
Right? Yeah. Listen. And I'll tell you, you cut me off if I talk too much. I love real estate, so I'll talk a lot about it and how it works.
I'm the same way. I feel you. That's why our first call that we had, man, I clicked with you so well. I just want to keep bringing you back on and talking with you because, we're all different, but you share a lot of the same similar things me and David do. And that's what this is about, being about small markets. It's a lot different in small markets across the country, and you don't have to novate and do all this stuff that they're teaching
Right.
you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, by the way? How do you feel about novations and all these other creative things that people are pitching out there right now? Like in South Carolina, they have, they're doing the land installment sales now to try to avoid the wholesaling. What do you think about all this stuff?
I think that as long as there are people in government, there are going to be new laws. I think as long as there are bad actors in any industry, there are going to be new laws. to try to control some of that stuff. The only reason there are wholesaling laws now are because of wholesalers that pull shenanigans, that get deals under contract that don't have any means to close them, and they leave sellers hanging. And because of that, now we have some wholesaling issues because everybody knows agents are experts, right? And if you got a license, then you probably know everything there is to know about real estate, right? That's a joke for anybody here that didn't catch that. I think most investors, experienced investors, know 10 times more about real estate than any agent will ever know or learn in a class. Novations, all that I say it's complicated because I've never done one. I'm not partnering with a seller. I'm just not going to. I'm going to buy their property, and then it's going to be my issue to deal with. I can see a lot of potential for problems partnering, especially when it comes to the closing table and that seller sees how much money you're making. I think that has a lot of potential for problems. For that reason, I mean, we can do a lot of stuff with creative finance, trying to work around. I don't think there's anything wrong with working around legislation if it's legal and if it's ethical. And we all know there are a lot of things that aren't against the law but aren't right. Okay. And I think if you're a decent human being, and one of the things most investors throw out there is, hey, we help people too. You know, if you're helping somebody or not. Okay. You know, if you're trying to get to them. I see a lot of stuff put into contracts to me that are just nuts. There's one guy out there right now that teaches this thing. You buy the property subject to, and you put in your contract that if the seller ever does anything to create a problem with the bank, and they have to give the house back to stop a due on sale problem, that in addition to giving the house back, the seller authorizes the investor to put a $50,000 lien on the property so that they'll get paid in any future sale. That's not helping that seller, right? Things like that just aren't. So I think if you just treat people right, you try to follow the law as best you can, or find a legitimate, legal, ethical way to operate around it, then you're fine. But I think novations, for example, I wouldn't do it because, like I said, I don't partner with sellers. I buy the property, solve their problem, and then I dispose of it in the way that I see fit.
So it sounds like over the years you've picked one thing to get really good at, right? I mean, you've done other things. You move around, you do flips, you've wholesale, but sub two's kind of been your gold, the thing you've mastered.
Sub two, buy sub two, sell to seller financing is 90% of what we do. On average, we might do one renovation a year. We might do a couple of flips. It just depends. But my model is buying subject to, wrapping that thing, selling it with seller financing, getting cash up front, cash flow, cash on the back. Uh, and this is what I know also, Travis. If you do the research, you'll see, and I don't remember the exact numbers now, but I did the research. Doctors, for example, a general practitioner, somebody you go see when you got a cold, that this and that. I mean, these guys make 200 grand a year, but a specialist, somebody that specializes in one particular thing, makes $500,000 a year. Pick something that you really, really love, that you're enthusiastic about, that you enjoy doing, get to be the best you can at that thing. And that's what you start looking for. And it's just like if you buy a red car today, you're going to start seeing red cars everywhere. I look for sub two opportunities that I can wrap. And that's what I find more of. I find the trends, I see the patterns, which people are the most likely to sell to me this way. And I look for those people. And so I find more of those deals. But again, I'm only looking for 10 or 15 of them a year. And you can do the math. If you start today and you buy one house a month, which is actually what I teach in the 12 house blueprint, one house a month every year, and you average $500 a month in cash flow, this time next year, you'll be bringing in $6,000 a month in pure cash flow. And this is real cash flow. This isn't rental cash flow with maintenance and management. Taxes go up, insurance goes up, it gets into your cash flow. When I sell on a wrap, my buyers absorb higher taxes and higher insurance. My cash flow stays the same. But if you buy one a month for a year, you're bringing in $6,000 a month in cash flow. That's 72,000 a year. That's more than the median income for a family in this country right now. Would you still need your job? Could you be a full-time investor? I think you probably could.
I love it. Where does one find, like in your experience, where's the best place to find these deals? Is there a certain list? I mean, how do we find them?
We do half of our deals through door knocking foreclosures. I say my VA pulls a list every week for me straight off the county website. We don't buy a list and we don't pull them from PropStream or Batch or any of those other things where they lag and they run behind. We go straight to our county courthouse, straight to the online database. We get the latest notices of default. He puts them in a spreadsheet for me and I map it out every Wednesday. And on Thursdays, I go driving and I go door knocking. We're looking for vacant properties. That means they've already moved out. We'll skip trace them, track them down, try to get a deed from them, or just having conversations with people. Knock on the door, ask for Bob. Hey, Bob, my name's William. I'm here today because I understand the bank's trying to take your property, and I wanted to see if I could help. Now, what does help mean? Most people want to keep their house. Have you talked to your lender? No, I haven't, or they weren't able to help me. It's okay. Do you have a minute? Let me come in. We'll sit down. We'll call your lender together. And we've helped people get loan modifications, keep their houses. We don't charge for that. That's just part of giving back. But a lot of people will say, you know what? I'm getting a divorce. I can't afford the house anyway. I'm just going to move. I talked to a lady last week. I'm giving it back to the bank on January 6th. Okay, well, let's talk for a minute because what if you could walk away with some money? So that's how we handle those. But we either help them keep their house free of charge or we try to buy it if they don't want to keep it. But foreclosures are about 50% of our business.
Wow, that's amazing. When it comes down to help, I know that word can mean a lot of different things, like you just said. Is there a lot of risk offering help to someone in foreclosure?
Well, I think if you're going to work foreclosures, you need to know your state's laws. Now, there are certain states, Maryland, I think is one, for example, Colorado had some foreclosure protection stuff, but you can't be a foreclosure consultant or anything like that. Remember, I said we don't charge anything. All we do is get on the phone with the lender and say, hey, Sally, I'm sitting here with Bob. I'm a friend of Bob's. He wants to keep his house. Are there any programs he's eligible for? A lot of these homeowners, first of all, a lot of them don't even talk to their lender. They avoid the phone calls, they don't correspond. So they haven't even had a conversation. The ones that have don't know what to ask for. They don't know to ask about loan modifications, partial claims, forbearances. I can speak that language and try to find something that Bob qualifies for. And that's what I'll try to do. So I'm not a foreclosure consultant in that way where I'm charging a fee and doing those things. I'm saying, hey, Bob, let's get on the phone with your lender and see if you qualify for anything. And
Awesome.
then let the lender take it from there.
Sweet. So that's what those disclosures are for that you're talking about. That way, that way they know for sure and they signed off on it to know that you're not a financial advisor. You're not advising them or you're not a consultant. I got you.
Yeah.
Very safe, man. That's how you keep yourself safe for sure. That's one of my biggest worries about, knocking on doors. I don't want people to feel like I've never done it. That's one thing. Me and David talk about it in our market. We're in these hills. People pull out shotguns on you. I don't know.
Right.
But I know that you do it, and people ask questions. So I wanted to talk about that with you because I can't give advice on that, and David doesn't door knock either. So, you just get your list together, you're out knocking on doors. Do you provide any type of like folders that you give out, resource sheets that you leave with people, stuff like that, or
Not generally.
okay.
We do have like a brochure thing that shows them, 10 or 15 ways you can stop your foreclosure. But most of the time, people that want to keep their house, what we try to do is talk to the lender and get them in a loan modification. That's the best scenario for everybody. Put everything you owe on the back end, start your payments over, just a fresh start. And one of the reasons is because some of the solutions to stopping a foreclosure or bankruptcy and things like that. And I have a big problem suggesting to somebody they might want to file bankruptcy. I think that's crossing a line. I'm not I have a ninth grade education, man. I'm certainly not, a lawyer. So I'm really going to hesitate. Some of those solutions, I'm not going to recommend them. It's pretty rare for me to ever hand anything out like that. But yeah, I mean, the other things on the list. I mean, do you have a 401k you can pull money out of? It's really funny the things that people don't think about. I knocked on the door one time of a guy who told me I already sold my house. I've got to move out this week. A realtor sold it for me. And then he proceeded to take me out of to the garage and show me this antique car he had. And I thought, man, you could have just sold your car and saved your house. I mean, he's crying the blues. My wife and I lived here and she died last year. But he just didn't want to sell his car. So I think a lot of times people don't just don't think, well, I've got a 401k at work. I could get that money. Or, friends or family, they don't want to let people know they're in trouble. Or the loan mods or the other things they can do. So, and we just try to point them in the right direction. But like I said, bankruptcy, the very last resort, and I don't like to recommend that. So I don't. I just leave that off.
So there's more and more options for people under foreclosure than ever before, right? Like the banks are giving more and more, so that's good. So let's say how many houses do you say you would, when you're knocking on doors a month, are you looking at, like actually getting inside and giving solutions to people, like
I knock
foreclosures?
I go through the list, and let's just say, for example, our average is about 15 every week
Okay,
that will pop up on the list. And I'll go through there and I'll cull those. Yeah, I take a quick look on PropStream. When did they buy it? What's their interest rate? I rule it out right away if it's not a cash flowing property or if it's in what I consider a bad part of town. I'm not interested in that either. So I may cull two or three of those 15 and I'm going knocking on the rest of them. Um, I'll knock on everybody's door. And statistically, Jody and I have been here for 3 years now, and we've got this thing down over the 3 years. If I knock on 43 doors, I'll buy a house.
love
That's
it.
those are just the statistics. That's
That's
how
what
it
I
is.
was looking for because as I know, David knows, we all know that you got to talk to thousands of people to get a deal. You got to have thousands of agents and AI. You got to do all of that to get a deal, right?
Nah, it's not like that. Now, I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing a quarter of a century, right? But my approach is different than most investors too. I know this for a fact because I see the postcards, I see the letters, and I have conversations with them. Has anybody else been by to talk to you? Very few people door knock. We're in a push button, instant everything society now. They want to text. At best, they'll drop something in the mail. But I like to get face to face with people. But most people that do knock on the door are there to buy the house. I'm there to offer help. Now, that may turn into buying the house, but, and what you talked about, people get a shotgun on you and stuff like that. My approach is different. I mean, think about this, Travis. If you're in trouble and somebody knocks on your door and they're very honest and forthright, they go, Travis, my name's William, and I'm here because I understand the bank's trying to take your house.
Yeah.
I'm here to see if I can help. All right. It's hard to be mad at William,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I have had some people say, I got it taken care of or whatever, but I've been doing this a really long time. I've never had a gun pulled on
Yeah.
me. I've never had anybody threaten to kill me or anything like that. And if they ever acted like they were going to come out, I wouldn't try to talk to him anymore. I'd say, hey, I'm sorry I bothered you, and I'd get out of here.
Sure.
But I'm not there to pressure anybody. I'm there to offer help in whatever form that may be.
I love that, man. Again, I can't say how much like I just appreciate you coming on here and giving this information because you've been here, you've been around a long time and your word means something. And there's a lot of gurus out here and people on YouTube teaching sub two. And some of these guys, I don't know if they've even been in this business 6 months.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
yeah, there's a lot of new people, but I don't know. Some of us have been around for a long time. I was actually talking to a couple of guys the other day. You may have seen it. It was on my Facebook page, and it was actually John Jackson was one of them, the lease option guy. And he said, yeah, there's some of us old timers. I said, we need to do an old timer, an OG summit is what we should do. People, you have to have been in the business longer than 25 years to be there, to be talking about it, because those guys have seen the cycles, right? They've seen bad stuff, and if they made it, they probably know a thing or two. You know what I mean?
So So
Yeah.
all three of us, David, me, and you, we've been talking the whole time. Everybody's been quiet and just listening. So if anybody does have questions and they want to ask William something or just talk, you guys can. You can raise your hand. You can speak to us. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys got.
What about you, Preston? You got anything? You're usually full of questions.
Nothing right now. I apologize with that.
No, you're all good, man.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry. I got a dog that's all crazy right now, so
no, it's good. I appreciate you being here and just listening. But okay, so foreclosures, that's the main thing. Are you doing anything else? Are you dealing? I know before you've done expired listings. Are you still doing that?
We're not, because in addition to foreclosures, we started right after we got here, started running radio ads. Radio ads do very well too. Our first deal was actually a radio ad, and
Okay.
it was a code enforcement guy called us. We started our ads one day. The next day, the code enforcement guy called us. He said, "I heard your ad. We've got a house up here that's been a problem for years. Can you help us?" And I said, "Sure, tell me about it." "Well, this house is run down. It's got a squatter living in there. I think he's dangerous. I wouldn't approach the house by yourself. I know where the owner lives. I can give you his contact information." I'm like, "Well, make it simple for me, man." An older couple that bought this house 20 years prior as a vacation cottage. They were older now. They lived in Mississippi. And he gave me their name and phone number and told them I'd be calling. I called them up. They just wanted to get rid of it. They owed $30,000 on a house fixed up. It's listed right now for 430. Right. We put it on the MLS and we sold it like 2 weeks later for $115,000 after we paid our commissions. We made $71,000 off of radio. So we were sold on radio,
Oh yeah.
and we'll buy a few houses a year from radio.
Okay. Is that expensive? Radio? Is it, like direct mail, PPL, PPC, all this stuff's so expensive, right? Quote
You know,
unquote.
when you call them, it's going to be expensive. But if you negotiate with them, they're like everybody else. Like when we called here, they told us, $40 to $60 a spot. The radio stations did. We run 100 spots a month on two different radio stations, 60-second spots. And we willed them down. We pay about $10 a spot now, but we agreed to sign a 1 year contract. We run it every single month. We don't change our ads very often, so they're pretty consistent. So we're an easy customer for them. We agree to preempting during election seasons if they need to drop some of our ads to free it up for higher paying ads, but they never have preempted us. But so we pay about $1,500 a month for two radio stations right now. So it's pretty affordable when you consider the first deal we did in the first couple of weeks made 70 grand. We paid for our radio for a long time. Yeah.
That's different. That's
Yeah.
that's that's different.
Radio's great. We did a whole podcast with a couple of guys on radio. I mean, our YouTube channel, if you want to listen to it, talking about what the metrics are, what stations to be on, and how much you should be paying for your ads. So, yeah, I mean, you can listen to that and get all the information you need to go out and start running radio.
Man, that's awesome. So from this call today, you've picked your one thing you've mastered at. You've kept this business super simple.
That's
So,
what's important.
so you have a VA, you mentioned that. Do you have big systems? Like, are you doing this go high level pro and all this AI follow-ups? Are you doing that?
I have Chat GPT for helping me with some things, but as far as we have one VA, he's in Nigeria. He's worked for us for the last 3 or 4 years. He does some admin stuff for us, some social media posting and things like that. As far as systems, I believe an investor needs two things that cost them every month. One is a CRM, because especially when you're new, 97 out of 100 people you talk to aren't going to be your seller right now. Now, they might be in the future, but they're not today. You need to be able to plug them into a system that's going to follow up with them over time. We use Go High Level. We think it's great. It's very affordable. I think we pay between our text messages that we send, our emails that we send, our RVMs, and Go High Level itself, we've probably spent $150 a month. The second thing you need is a data aggregate like PropStream. We use PropStream. That's what we like. $97 a month. Before I met with my seller today, I knew what he owed. I knew what his payments were. I knew what his interest rate was. I knew how long he had owned his house. So I had a lot of information already. And that's what's worthwhile to us. Those two subscriptions are really all that you need to run this business. I mean, in my opinion, all that other extra stuff and using AI and trying to, hands off investing and all that stuff. Listen, it's some work getting started. But it pays a lot better than anything I've ever done. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Hey, I have another question for you, William. And it's a little more of an advanced question, but when you do the wraparound finance, how do you make sure that your tenant buyer performs maintenance, any kind of issues like that? Because that's always an issue with the sub two type deals.
Well, let's get clarity first on our buyer. They're not tenant buyers. We don't do lease options. We
Right.
do true sales, and our preferred instrument is a land contract. The land contract conveys equitable title, but not legal title. So, in other words, we buy the property in a trust. We sell the house on a land contract, which means our buyer gets equitable title, all the rights of ownership. They can homestead the property. They can write off the interest on their taxes, but our trust keeps legal title. That keeps us in control. If they decide not to pay us, depending on their equity position, we may be able to do a simple eviction, although I try to give them cash for keys. And we get a very small number back. Now, you asked me how I can make sure my buyer performs. You know what I've said half a dozen times today? Life happens, David. Some buyers lose their jobs. Some buyers get divorces. Some buyers have a devastating illness happen in their family and have a lot of medical debt. The biggest thing we do to try to ensure performance is get a decent down payment. We ask for 8 to 10% down. If you want to get in one of my houses, you got to have 8 to 10% down. We verify their income. We make sure that they make at least 3 times whatever their monthly payment's going to be, 3 times minimum. Do you realize that FHA allows 50% DTI on house payments now?
It's
That's
crazy.
insane.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure that it's no more than 33% on our houses. Now, does that guarantee that they'll pay us? No, because life happens. But that's the biggest thing we can do. Make sure they have money invested, make sure they have enough income right now to make those payments. That's the biggest thing we do. Now, when our buyers move in, a housewarming gift that we give them is a 1-year homeowner's warranty. So they know for the first year, $50 deductible if anything goes out. After that, it's on them. Now, if I'm selling a $300,000 house and I got $25,000 or $30,000 down, if I'm a smart investor, I don't go blow that 25 or 30 on trips and toys. I'm going to put some of that money back, right? So if I get a house back and it needs paint, it needs flooring, it needs fix up, I'm doing it with that down payment money that they gave me. The smartest thing you can do, don't spend all your money. Okay, that's going to protect you if you get a house back.
Yeah. And sometimes, during the course of over the term of these type of deals, like if you get code enforcement, you get calls like that. And I've had those through the years, for, buyers in there not doing exactly what they're supposed to do or not garbage piled up on the property and stuff like that. I mean, how do you handle that type of thing?
I got to tell you, I don't know if I've been extremely lucky or what. Now, to me, I told you earlier, we only buy houses in nice areas.
Mhm.
Okay. The neighbors, aren't going to, allow that sort of thing to happen.
Right.
I think you run into a bigger problem with that when you're buying in marginal areas where that sort of behavior is acceptable. But most of the places that we're going to buy our houses that we're going to keep in our portfolio are going to be really nice areas.
Right.
So that generally doesn't happen. I don't think I've ever got a code enforcement call on a
Mhm.
property that we've had. We just don't fool around
Mhm.
in marginal areas. It's nice. Of course, all that stuff is built into your land contract anyway, that if they make waste on the property, it's in every mortgage that you've ever gotten on a house. You realize your lender can enact the due on sale clause if you make waste on the property, if you don't maintain it and take care of it.
That's
They can
wild.
do it. Yeah, but it's in there.
these are questions coming from a real estate investor from 20 years ago doing them.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah,
buy those types of properties,
right.
and you live and learn. So now, I'm kind of like the house has to be top shelf. It has to have a new roof on, newer roof.
Right.
It has to have all these things now before I'm even interested in doing anything like that.
Now, if I'm flipping it, hey, I don't care where it's at. If I'm buying at a point where I know I can sell it right away, but if I'm going to hang on to that thing, man, I got some standards now. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it can be nasty, and you learn that lesson too. I had to learn it myself. You would think, and I told the story before that you couldn't buy a house for 50 cents on the dollar and lose money. But when you buy a house in a bad part of town across the street from the nastiest trailer park this side of the Mississippi, you can still lose money buying a house at 50 cents on the dollar of the value.
Yeah.
And I have. So we don't play that stuff anymore. We stay in the good parts of town.
So
Good
yeah,
goal.
everybody, if you're interested in doing this, uh, buy in good areas. I mean, my grandma says you can either listen to it or you can feel it. Okay, so I felt it many
Yeah.
times through the years, and
Oh yeah.
so now I'm definitely looking for a different style of house when I want to do anything like this.
That's the benefit, David, of listening to old guys.
All right.
Nobody wants to listen to the old guys, man, but we've been there. We made those mistakes. So we can tell you, but nobody wants to listen. It's just like telling a 2-year-old the stove's hot. They're going to touch it to find out.
Yeah, so
you know,
sometimes you got to feel it, right?
yeah, sometimes you got to. That's what you got to do to learn the lesson. But when you do that, those lessons. Then it ain't just oh, David or William told me. They know it for a fact. So sometimes life has to be painful, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I know we've been talking for 50 some minutes here, but anybody on here got anything? Ben, you got something?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for being on here, William. It's good to
Yeah.
actually talk to you face to face. I've been following you for a while on Facebook. So, um, a question I have regarding what you were just talking about, these houses and what you referred to as marginal areas. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I find your model attractive because you can get into higher end areas. I'm having a lot of, well, not a lot, but I have had issues just with the demographic you tend to cater to with these marginal area houses. Have you done that model before? Is that how you got to the point where you're doing these higher end sub two deals in nicer areas just because you don't want to deal with the problems you have with defaulting tenant buyers or code violations, et cetera?
Correct. When I got started, Ben, I appreciate your question. I appreciate you following me. When I got started, I didn't know the stuff that I know today. So I would buy in pretty much any neighborhood if I felt like I was getting an okay deal. Uh,
Yeah.
a big mistake a lot of new investors make is, and they'll listen to this crap. If I can get a sub two, it doesn't matter, man. Somebody's going to give me a deed is probably a good thing. That's really not true. But what I learned over time was if you're going to buy in a C minus neighborhood, those houses are the best fit for a Section 8 rental because the government's going to pay your rent. If you give them a nice property, better than they can get in almost any other house they could rent, they will stay with you for a really long time. So we went to, if we were going to buy in a C minus area, we would make that property a Section 8 rental. Screen them very carefully. And there are certain keys to that too. Most of them are going to be single moms. Get the ones that have small children because they'll stay until the kids are grown. So you're going to keep that same tenant in that property, be very prompt in your repairs. And that's your best bet to make money in those neighborhoods. Don't try to do a regular rental.
Yeah.
For gosh sakes, don't try to do lease options because they're never going to cash you out. They're not going to take care of your property. But if you're going to operate in those areas, Section 8 rentals are great. We did a whole portfolio of Section 8s when I was in Georgia, and it worked out okay.
Okay. Yeah, the houses I was referring to that I have, I'm not doing rentals or Section 8s myself. I have sold all mine on a contract for deed, and I have sold several to Section 8 landlords.
Right.
And I don't get into their business too much, but as far as I can tell, they're doing well with those. I just don't want to be the one who's actually dealing with the Section 8 tenants or these houses, just because they're typically older houses and they do
Right.
require a
Sure.
lot of upkeep and maintenance. I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah. Part of, and like I said, I could write a whole course, I guess, on Section 8 like that, was we would buy a house that needed renovation,
Mm-hmm.
typically new central heat and air, maybe plumbing. I mean, the whole bit, go back, refinance, sort of a Burr thing on that. But you got all new systems in a nice place. And there is very little maintenance with those Section 8s. Just be prompt when they do call you. And they're so appreciative because if you go in most Section 8 rentals, they're painted white from floor to ceiling. There's no character. There's no, color about the house. But, we put a dishwasher in ours. We put an extra deep sink in it, a few, ceiling fan in all the rooms, not just those dome lights, just little added nicer features that they couldn't get in most Section 8 rentals. And man, our tenants stayed. They love their houses. And, but if you're
Awesome.
going to keep them, that's a good thing to do. Lease option, contract for deed in those areas, man, you're going to have a miserable life. You're going to get those houses back. They're not going to take care of them. 80, 90% of them will never perform. That
Yeah.
was my experience with that.
Okay. Yeah, and I can certainly relate. I don't know if I've been lucky so far or if I'm doing a little bit better job of vetting my buyers, but I'm at a point now where my portfolio is performing well, but I also don't really want to continue scaling this up because the problems I am having are making me reconsider what I'm doing. And
You're probably a better manager than I was. I'm not. My temperament is not suited to be a landlord. It's just
well,
not.
and again, I'm not landlording per se because I've sold all of these on a contract for deed, so I don't have any tenants per se in any of the houses. But
it sounds like if what I heard you say was that you're selling them, some of them to Section 8 landlords that have Section 8 tenants.
correct.
So they're doing well with it. So they're going to keep the house from you as long as they're making money. So, hey, that may be your twist.
Yeah.
You're not dealing directly with a buyer in the house, right?
What do you mean not dealing directly with a buyer?
You're not
Like
like somebody that wants to live there.
I am in most of them. I would say
really?
probably 75% I've sold to actual, owner occupants.
Oh, well, good.
And I have had a few turnovers with a couple of my houses. Some of them have been total nightmares. I've had others where I sold them to one person and, they've been in them for several years and I assume they're going to stay there indefinitely. They've made upgrades to the house and whatnot, but
that's great. You're doing okay then.
I'm doing okay, but I do like the idea of buying in nicer areas, which is why I find this sub-2 model attractive because, for the same amount of money out of pocket or maybe even less, it seems like you can do these sub-2s in nice neighborhoods or even be positive, if you can collect a larger down payment from someone than what you gave the seller.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we ask for 8 to 10%. Now I try to get in lighter than that. So, like I said, in this house that we just got under contract, I'll write him a check for 20 and I'll get 25 or 30. So, I mean,
Right.
man, how many of those can you buy? I mean, your return, you try to punch that into your financial calculator, you get a bunch of E's.
Yeah,
Right.
that can be a good thing.
That's what we love to do, man. I tell everybody a story. A Carlton Sheets course said I needed a financial calculator. So I went and bought one. I didn't know how to use it. And I carried it around with me for 2 or 3 years. And I tell everybody, man, I thought it was broken because every time I try to calculate my return, it would say E's. So I thought it didn't work anyway.
That's great. Hey, do you always sell your houses where you're doing a sub-2 wrap? Do you always sell them on a contract for deed or land contract, or do you ever,
Yes, sir.
or can you on a sub-2 wrap, can you actually transfer the deed to the house, or do you have to do it on a contract for deed?
I could sell it on a wrap. And in fact, if you live in Texas, you just about have to.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky and I continue to operate only in places that will allow a land contract because it gives me so much more flexibility. And I'll give you a couple of examples if you're interested. Number one, keeping legal title is always best. It makes it easier for you to keep control of that property. And here's the second thing to think about. Let's say the worst happens and you have a due on sale issue and you have to go refinance that property. If I gave legal title to my buyer, I would have to involve them in unwinding things for me to refinance. If I
Good point.
keep legal title, I'm free to operate any way I want to under there with my buyer never being the wiser, never being freaked out, and me having to explain that story. Second good reason is because let's say that I've got equity in that property still, and I need to tap it for some reason. If I've got legal title, I can go refinance to pull out equity or borrow private money against that property in a second position or a second mortgage. Where if I gave my buyer legal title, I would have to involve them in that. And I don't want them to know my business. So there's a lot of
Right.
good reasons for selling on a land contract.
When you sell on your land contracts, do you have any kind of a balloon for your buyer? I know you said you don't ever um, go for a balloon with the seller, but do you do go with a balloon for your buyer? And where I'm going with this is like, let's say you sell a house on a CFD, and your buyer's been there for 10 or 15 years where they do have equity and they wanted to go say, let's pull a home equity line of credit. They couldn't do that, just having equitable title. They'd have to have legal title. What would you do in a situation like that?
Well, I guess at that point, first of all, I've never had anybody in there for 15 years. So I can't say from experience what I would do. If they wanted to
Okay.
go borrow money against the property, I mean, maybe I would be the lender if it were worthwhile to me to do that. To answer your initial question, I do not give my buyers a balloon either.
Okay.
Uh, and maybe I should point this out as well. Virtually every property we take over was initially on a 30-year fixed mortgage, and at some point in the amortization, we finance on a 40-year note. Okay, and you go run the numbers on that, and you'll see why. It makes their
Yeah.
payment a little lower. It makes our back end payday bigger. And if this comes to pass with a 50-year mortgage, I think we're going to go to 50 years. But uh, like I said, to answer your question, no, we do not give our buyers a balloon. If they want to keep paying me, that's just fine. Most people are going to refinance in 5 or 6 years anyway, just because most people move or sell their house or do something in that period of time. But you
Yeah.
can't put balloons in more than one note a year and comply with Dodd-Frank.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of Dodd-Frank. Nobody's ever been prosecuted in the 15 years it's been around. I think they've disbanded actually that part of the government now. But if you want to stay compliant, you can't do more than one note a year with a balloon in it anyhow. So I just never do it.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, you bet.
Um, One other question I had for you. You said you close all your sub two deals with a notary.
I do.
I have done one sub two deal. I kind of botched my way through it, I think. I got it done, but I use a transaction coordinator. Um, this was a referral I got from somebody who's in another big sub two community. I wasn't particularly happy with how this transaction coordinator closed the deal. They made some mistakes. Do you
Right.
not use someone like a transaction coordinator just because like you can be your own transaction coordinator, so to speak? So all you need is a notary to notarize that
That's exactly right. This is the
documents.
thing, Ben. You don't have
Okay.
to be an attorney to prepare docs. If you're a
Right.
principal in the transaction, you're perfectly able to draft a deed or a power of attorney or anything else that you're doing. Nobody knows my business like I do. And I can whip out docs for a sub two in 20 minutes. And I know they don't have any mistakes because I did it.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem with these transaction coordinators is, man, don't get me started on that. Most of them don't know what the heck they're doing. They went through 6 hour training course. They're not invested in your business. Mistakes, oh well, whatever. They're not lawyers. They're not giving legal advice. If you're going to use a transaction coordinator, use somebody that's been around for a long time. David Oles is probably the best person out there to do transaction coordination. He was a transaction coordinator before it was cool, right? Uh,
Okay.
And
so,
he
and
comes from this business, right? Like he's not a no offense to these people, but he's not like these courses are targeted to single home mothers right now, people who's raising their kids and they're learning how to be a TC and they're not fully aware is what William's saying.
we onboarded two new joint venture partners a couple of weeks ago that were paying a transaction coordinator who must have been taught by Scooby Doo. They were paying this chick $5,000 to do their sub two docs. I couldn't believe it. And David will do them for you for $1,000, done by a knowledgeable person who, and I believe it, and he's never done my stuff for me, and I know him. You know, I've met him a few times in person, but I mean, we're not drinking buddies or anything like that, so I don't know him intimately. But I believe that his crew cares about quality and they care about getting stuff done right. So if you're going to use a TC, do that. If I were you, and I think every elite investor should have the ability to prepare their own docs correctly and efficiently, be able to do a title search, have all those skills, whether you do it or not. Because I'm telling you, one day if you start targeting foreclosures, for example, somebody's going to call you the night before the auction. If that deal has $100,000 in potential profit for you, would you be able to do a quick, dirty title search? Would you be able to prepare your docs? Would you be able to go file a TRO and get something stopped in time to get these things done? You need those elite skills. Whether you ever do it for yourself or not, learn to do those things.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I passed on what looked like a really, really good sub-2 deal last week just because it was going to foreclosure on Friday, basically. And I learned about it on Wednesday, and I just thought there's no way that I can
And there's
get this done in time.
because I'll tell you what'll stop a foreclosure dead in its tracks: reinstating the mortgage.
Yeah,
And if you had the ability to do that title search and know what you were dealing with, what debt was on that property, and perform your due diligence, how much do they owe? What's the interest rate? What will it rent for? What's the condition of the property? You could reinstate that mortgage and that foreclosure is dead.
is this stuff you teach all of this in your coaching program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure do.
I've taken William's course, so I'm not an official student of William, but years ago I bought his Sub 2 handbook, man, and it did a lot of it helped me a lot more than YouTube videos helped me. You can watch these guys on YouTube, but it seems like it's just a maze that they send you on,
Sure.
and you never have all the true answers. So I vouch for William, not that that means anything in my 8 years of experience, but if I would definitely go to William's course if you're looking for that.
We step our students through A to Z. I'll tell you this: Ryan is in our Max Platinum group right now, and he joined 2 months ago, and he's got a closing date set for his first Sub 2 that he got door knocking. He's going to make about $90,000. He's selling it
Awesome.
retail. And I mean, he comments sometimes on my Facebook post, and he said, "Man," he said, "I'm making more out of this one deal in 2 months that I made in a whole year with my car wash business." He had a car wash business, so he and his wife are really excited. We're proud for him. So if you get out there and do the stuff, you make the money. I mean, that's just fact. But it's not like I'm not going to tell you it's effortless, and you sit home and push a bunch of buttons and be a millionaire next week, because it don't work that way. You're going to you're going to have to do some stuff that's uncomfortable. If you don't door knock, you need to get out there and be doing it. I mean, that's the reason it's profitable, is because most people won't do it, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, we appreciate you, William. It was good talking with you today. We hope to have you back soon. David,
Yeah.
you want to end us off? We won't be here next week, guys. We have Christmas, so following up the next week we'll be back. And David, if you want to just tell everybody bye and let them know what it is, we can finish it off.
He's muted.
Muted, David.
Sorry. I don't normally ever mute myself. I appreciate everybody being here. I'm very grateful everybody's here. I hope you got some valuable information out of this. William, he's really got some good stuff. Is there anything else, any place they need to go to see your stuff, William?
You can go to williamtingle.com. You can learn about our coaching program if you want to. If you want to get started really inexpensively in how my program works, and it's a pretty A to Z book right here. You can go to 12houseblueprint.com and get my book, and it'll tell you exactly how our model works, how we buy, how we sell, the criteria for the properties, and everything else. And man, I'm very appreciative y'all showed up, and hope that it was a worthwhile hour for you. And hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, and just get out there and talk to some sellers and you'll buy some houses. So I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Like I said, we won't be here next week, and we will be back. Is it the 30th, Travis? Are you there, Travis?
He's muted. He's muted.
Now I'm muted myself.
Yeah,
I
make
think
fun.
it's the 31st, guys, right? New
Who
Year's
do we
Eve.
have on the 31st?
Jasper Cool will be coming on. He's a wholesaler out of Phoenix, but he's a virtual guy, and he likes to keep it simple, just like the rest of us here. So, I think you guys will enjoy him.
Simple's better. That's for sure. Let me say one more thing. It's the 17th of December. You've got time to buy another house. We got this one under contract this morning. You got time.
Let's go.
Right. End the year strong, man.
Y'all have a good one. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Happy holidays, guys.
Bye bye.